Good evening, everyone. The format for tonight's debate is fairly simple. Each of our candidates in alphabetical order will give an opening statement for about 2 minutes each. And I have a very sophisticated stopwatch thing here that Santiago Chavez gave me, so I will be keeping time fairly exactly. And then the Student Alliance has prepared 5 questions, which each of the candidates has before him. And I will read aloud the questions, and then each candidate can spend 1 minute answering the questions. We'll get through those, I hope, in about 25 minutes. And then we'll have a short closing statement from each person. And then for almost the latter half of the hour we have available to us, we will invite questions from you. So as the evening unfolds, please think of some questions that you would like to put to the candidates. I hope there'll be many of you who will ask questions, and the more people there are, then I hope the shorter and more pointed the questions will be. So we have the first part then to come up, opening statements, and I'll call upon Mr. Boudreau of the Liberal Party.
Thank you very much. Is this on? Yes? Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Bateman. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. I want to start by thanking the New Brunswick Student Alliance for having organized this event. Thanks to those of you that are here this evening. And my understanding is this is being a webcast as well, so thanks to all the students who are watching from around the province. And I also want to thank the other parties for being here today. To see all 5 parties here, I think it shows the importance that every party puts on post-secondary education. This is probably one of the areas where a lot of us might be able to agree on certain points because it is very important for the future of our province. And I also want to, while I'm at it, congratulate you all for being engaged. If you're here, it's because you're being engaged. It's because you want to know what's being I guess the overarching goal for the NBSA is to have affordable, accessible, and high-quality post-secondary education. Well, I dare say that probably every party can agree with that statement. Where we may differ a little bit is on the routes that we may take to get there, but I certainly do think that we would all agree with that. And another passage that I found interesting in the document is when it says post-secondary education provides a means to upgrade our workforce, prepare for incoming labor market demands, or upcoming labor market demands, and to grow our population. And I think that's also important to highlight because it does demonstrate that post-secondary education is not just about what goes on between these 4 walls for the 4 years or 5 years that you're here on campus, but it's the impact that that has on the province's workforce, that it has on the province's future, and on our economy and how we're able to grow as a province. So I really do commend the NBSA. I know that there are 8 recommendations that were highlighted in the document. I hope this evening to be able to tell you what the Liberal Party's position is vis-a-vis these various recommendations. I can't say that they're all in our platform, but I can certainly say that most of them are, and that they've been addressed, and I will address them as the evening goes on. And our platform was just released today as well, so I invite people to after this, if you want to have more detail, you can certainly go on the Liberal Party website and see the full platform that was released earlier today by our leader, Brian Gallant. So thank you.
Okay, that was about 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Oh. So that'll be deducted from your time later on. Just kidding. Okay, Mr. Carr.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bateman. And Victor Boudreau gave a lot of nice introductions, and I echo the same introductions to our candidates, to the New Brunswick Student Alliance, Greg and Pat Joyce and your executive. It has been a pleasure to work with you as Minister of Post-Secondary Education, Training and Labour within the last year. And I'd like to also acknowledge everyone that has shown the interest to come here today or to watch on the live webcasting. I went to university a few years ago, and my first year in university was the first time I got involved with party politics. I volunteered that fall, my first term, in a political campaign, and it's a great way to make a difference. At first, people questioned why I would get involved with political parties, and I wasn't keen on political parties, but it was the system that we have and the system to make a difference. Sometimes people say that our young people are apathetic and not interested in politics, and I believe it's that they're maybe not interested in party politics, but young people definitely have an interest in making a difference and being activists for change and for good. And that's what you're here for tonight, to be engaged and to be involved. So I look forward to our discussion with our fellow candidates and our political parties, and have you be involved with that discussion. Accessibility for students, affordable costs for universities and students, excellence in quality are, like Victor said, key priorities of this government and of the PC party. Whether it's increased grants for students, stable tuition, capping our increases, multi-year increases for universities, accessibility funds to accommodate all students in their learning, building capacity, and also a larger focus on outcome-based learning in our universities. Student life wellness, mental health is a key priority that we continue to work with our universities on improving. Student accommodation, as I said, and support is necessary. International education, research and innovation, and work opportunities and jobs. With our demographics and young people leaving and older people getting older, it's very important we have a future right here in New Brunswick, a future with post-secondary education, and a future that's linked to jobs in our province. We'll be able to continue this discussion throughout the panel, and as we keep going through the next couple of weeks, I invite you also to read our platform at pcmb.ca. Thank you, and looking forward to this dialogue.
Very good. Thank you very much. Mr. Coon.
I'm going to stand up just because sitting down is... Everyone for taking some time out to attend this afternoon, and thanks to New Brunswick, or this evening, I guess. Boy, I'm also the leader of the Green Party as well as the candidate for Fredericton South, so pardon me if I slip up occasionally. I've been preparing for the televised debates tomorrow all day long, so my brain is close to full. Affordable post-secondary education is critical, and you're not going to find any disagreement among any of our parties up here tonight at this table. The Green Party's interest long-term is to figure out how to make post-secondary education tuition-free, to remove tuition altogether. That's not in this platform. We have a serious financial problem right now in New Brunswick, a major deficit, and even so, we have committed in our platform to spending some serious dollars to make post-secondary education more affordable, and I'll be talking about that a little later. But it's that important. We went through the recommendations in the New Brunswick Student Alliance's paper, and certainly the ones we chose as priorities that we put in our platform, I think you'll be pleased with. I hope so. It represents a significant new investment, and we're also proposing where to find that money, which is the other important part when we're dealing with such an overwhelming deficit on our books these days. So I look forward to the discussion, and thanks again for coming out this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Lamrock.
Well, thanks very much, Tom. First of all, it's great to be back at St. Thomas. I want to join everyone in congratulating the New Brunswick Student Alliance. It's particularly gratifying for me to see how thoughtful their policy documents have been. I was the founding president of the New Brunswick Student Alliance not that long ago, so it's, I would have to say it's in even better hands today, and it was really good to see. It's a document that deserves some specific responses, so let's get right to the issues. A lot of people know that there's something wrong right now in New Brunswick. They know that we're going back and forth between two parties who often seem like they just have to prove the other guy isn't up to our challenges, and they take over by default. And what Dominic Cardy and the NDP hope to do is speak in some very real specifics. For instance, we have I think a false choice on turning our economy around. One party says the key is fracking. The other says the linchpin of their economic plan is to borrow $900 million for construction and road jobs, which are temporary. I'd say there's probably something even more important to do, and that's to rebuild New Brunswick's homegrown sector, investing in local business instead of bailing out and subsidizing fly-by-night companies, and having the absolute best workforce we possibly can. That's where post-secondary education comes in. To make it a real focus and investment, instead of spending $220 million a year bailing out failing companies, let's put a little bit less into actually investing in young people and talent here in New Brunswick. What does that mean? Well, it means some common sense solutions, the ones students have been talking about. It means making it easier for people to take that first step into a university and college classroom, take some of the tax credits that only kick in on the back end after graduation, and apply that money to Hope scholarships to lower the cost of first-year tuition fees for everybody who's got the ability, regardless of income, in a post-secondary classroom. Let's make it easier for people to stay in school by investing in mental health services. Let's reform the student loan system. Too many young people right now are dropping out because their student loans get docked for work income or for the income of their parents, and they wind up working 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet when they should be able to invest their time in class where things can really make a difference. So let's talk about serious student loan reform and also campuses that are more welcoming to people from international students to non-traditional students, lesbian, gay, bisexual students. Let's make sure we invest in the services that keep young people in class. And finally, we're going to talk very specifically about solutions on the back end. You know, too many people are, I know some of them myself, some are in my family. People who after graduation are forced to go off to Fort McMurray because their debt loads is absolutely crippling and terrifying. The specter of it keeps too many talented young people out of class in the first place. We've proposed a free and 8 debt reduction plan, one that says you don't have your student loan hanging over you like the sword of Damocles. If you graduate and you have a low income, government will help you make your payments so you're guaranteed to be done paying in 8 years. Those are the kinds of concrete ideas, along with taking the politics out of summer job programs that we want to talk about tonight. In the end, we're not competing anymore for low-wage jobs. Those jobs have gone to China and India. Our best hope is in the research and the talent and the young people and the professors on our campus who are our greatest resource to stay a step ahead of those who can pay a lot lower wages. That's the key to our modern economy. That's the key to social equality. And we look forward to talking in real specifics, not platitudes tonight. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. And finally, Jeff Langille.
Hi, I'm really happy to be here tonight. Post-secondary education is something that's really close to my heart. I'm still a PhD student here at UNB. You know, I'm doing my PhD in physics. Currently wrapping that up, hopefully to be finished in the next month and a half or so if everything goes well with polishing it off with my supervisor. For our party, we strongly believe that post-secondary education needs to be leveraged in order to ensure a brighter and social and economic future for the province. It's clear that the majority of jobs that are created in the years ahead are going to require some form of post-secondary education, and that requires us to make some real commitments to ensure that all New Brunswickers have access to, you know, really high-quality post-secondary education. The economic footprint of our institutions is immense, and it cannot be overstated. These institutions attract exceptional academics from around the globe. These academics pursue R&D activities that increase the overall innovative capacity of the province. They hire postdocs, graduate students, research assistants. We believe that the post-secondary institutions in the province need to be a pillar in our economic development. Unfortunately, in the past few decades, we've been in a situation where our institutions have not been provided with adequate long-term stable funding, and that's left them making tough decisions when it comes to education. You have a situation in many of our institutions where the administrations are struggling to balance the books and, you know, find some sustainable path forward while also maintaining the quality of education for the students. It's also led to unreasonably high tuition rates in the province. The People's Alliance wants to address these things directly. We're doing that in our platform by making commitments like multi-year funding agreements with the institutions. We'd like to have these bypass election cycles so that they remove some of the partisan nature of the politics around it. We also want to freeze tuition. We think that's necessary until we get things down to the national average. And we'd also like to implement more oversight over our institutions to ensure effective use of the public tax dollars. We think that it can be best done through some form of legislative committee that works with each institution specifically to find a sustainable path forward for the institutions. And using those committees, we can find a way within each institution to solve a lot of the questions that you guys are going to ask us here tonight. I'm looking forward to having that discussion with everybody.
Very good. Thank you all. Now, the next portion of our evening is where the NBSA has prepared 5 questions for the candidates to address. So they have the questions before them on sheets of paper. I'll read them aloud, and I'll ask the candidates each to give very pointed 1-minute responses to those questions so that we can have as much time for freer discussion later. So the first question is, and maybe we'll go in reverse order this time, starting from Jeff at the far end to respond. The first question is this: New Brunswick has a 26.8% post-secondary participation rate and a home province participation rate of 15.7%. If elected, what will your party do to make post-secondary education more accessible and affordable, particularly for groups that are currently underrepresented in post-secondary education? So, Jeff.
Okay, so I'll go back to what I was saying in my introduction. I really strongly believe that in order to solve a lot of these problems, we're going to have all the institutions working with the legislative committee in the legislature to solve, detailed problems within each institution. Each institution is different. The politics is different. The demographics may be different inside the institutions. What they teach is different. So the academic atmosphere is different. We really think that that's how we're going to solve these problems. In terms of making it more affordable, obviously stabilizing the tuition rate is going to be necessary. Right now we're 8th in the country when it comes to that. So we'd like to bring us down to the national average and keep us there for as long as we can do that. That's necessary to stop out-migration of our students as well. How are we going to expect to keep our students in the province when they leave after high school? Once they're gone, they're probably not going to come back. Let's be honest, they're not. There's better jobs elsewhere right now, and until we get the economy to turn around, if they're gone, they're going to stay gone. We need to make sure that they want to come to university here in New Brunswick. They stay for 4 years, and then we find incentives for them to stay once they're here.
Very good. Thank you very much. Kevin.
The most important thing to do is to break the cycle of people feeling post-secondary education isn't for them. Today, the best investment against future unemployment is a university or college education. And if we're going to attract employers, we've got to have a higher number of people with degrees or diplomas. No question about that. How do we do it? Well, we've got to work a little bit harder because we have more parents who also didn't go to university or college, as these numbers suggest. So a few things. One, we've got to make that first step really easy. That's why instead of having tax credits that only kick in after you've graduated and have a high income, let's take that money and create Hope scholarships that lower the cost first year. Make that first step onto campus as easy as possible. The other thing is debt loads. If your parents drove a $40,000 car, maybe a $40,000 debt load doesn't scare you off. But if you live in a $50,000 house, it sure does. And New Brunswick has a lot of families who still do. That's why I think it's so important that we're the only party that is talking about putting hard caps on the amount of time you can be in debt, and government not just suspending your loan payments, but actually taking over the payments to make sure you're out in 8 years. It's a good investment. Most people will still be able to pay it off without government help, but that simple guarantee will help so many students from families who have never had anyone know the promise of post-secondary education before, break down those barriers, get through those doors, and start having more opportunity than their parents had. That's the most important thing we can do.
Thank you. Good.
There's 2 things we would do. The first thing is to remove interest from student borrowing. So eliminate interest on the loans. There is no reason we can't do this. Nova Scotia's done it. New Brunswick loans money to businesses at 0 interest. New Brunswick loans money to homeowners to insulate their houses at 0 interest. I borrowed some of that, 0 interest. You get that, it's great. Students should not be paying interest on their loans. So we would eliminate interest on that. That would cost about $16 million a year. That would add about $16 million to the expenditures in New Brunswick a year. We would also reduce the cap on student loans from $26,000 to $20,000. That would cost about $5 million to $6 million a year in terms of added expenditures. But we think those two things are the ones that can help students the most in terms of affording post-secondary education. And that's what we would do. And we would pay for those new expenditures from new sources of revenue that we have built into our platform. In particular, we will be raising the taxes on corporations so that they are equivalent to Nova Scotia and PEI. We'll be adding an extra income bracket to high-income earners, and we will apply a carbon tax, a tax on pollution, where that carbon comes into our economy, when it's delivered as coal on a ship to the power plant in Baldoon, or when it's delivered as oil to the refinery in St. John, or when it's delivered through a pipe to New Brunswick from the offshore gas well. So that's what we would do, that's how we would pay for it, and we think those two things combined are affordable and would have the greatest impact.
Thank you. Mr. Carr.
Thank you very much. Progressive Conservative Party not only talks about this at election time, but we've tried to show our commitment in the 4 years we've been in government. Stabilizing tuition by capping the increases at 3%. Funding to universities over multi-year, the next 2 years at 2% increases. Increasing our grants and providing accessibility support so all students have the support with diversity to attend our universities. A key part of this campaign is not making old-style a number of promises that we just can't keep or we can afford. Progressive Conservative Party has learned in the last 4 years in particular, while working very hard to maintain all of our promises in the last election, that the money is not there to grandstand at election time, woo your vote, and only to break your promise after the election. So our promises have been modest, and as we create jobs and innovation and wealth through investing in university and innovation and research, like we have a $100 million strategy that can contribute to the growth of our province, we have more job opportunities for our young people to stay here. In particular, we need to have a very key focus on high school career planning. Our party has a commitment to provide support so that each and every high school student has a career plan upon graduating high school so that they're better equipped, with better knowledge about the post-secondary opportunities that links to jobs in our province and the future that they can be part of here in New Brunswick.
Thank you. Mr. Boudreau.
Thank you very much. Well, the two words that stand out obviously are accessible and affordable. And I think that former Liberal governments in the past have demonstrated that they take those two words seriously. And I think a future Liberal government, if we were so lucky to get elected on September 22nd, would look at those two words again. A couple of the commitments that we've made in our platform that was released today. One is putting in place a grants program that would be at the front end of the student loan equation as opposed to being at the back end where you have to max out your loans before you can get a grant. We'd move those grants forward and make sure that they're available, particularly for the low-income students. We would also, once again, take out the parental and spousal contribution from the formula. That's something that we've done once already, and then a Conservative government put it in place again, and we're committed to removing that parental and spousal contribution again. On the question of underrepresented individuals, we need to better educate those groups on the importance of education moving forward. A grade 12 education is simply not enough anymore, and we need to work with our First Nations, with our low income, with our first generation students to make sure that they know the importance of post-secondary education. So that's something that we would work with our school system as well to promote those types of ideas.
Very good. Thank you very much. The next question touches the affordability matter again, and it reads as follows. New Brunswick currently ranks 8th out of the 10 provinces in terms of public funding to universities per student. How will your party ensure New Brunswick's public universities are adequately supported and that public dollars are used effectively to provide high-quality post-secondary education? How about this time we start in the middle of our table and radiate outwards? Mr. Coon.
Thank you for that question.
I'm going to get really creative here before you even
I was looking for who was in the middle. I think, you know, fundamentally to reduce tuition fees, there's got to be more government money in the system. That's the only way it's going to happen. It's not clear how we do that and afford that. But I think that the approach, and certainly this is what I would do if elected, is we've got to work across party lines in the Legislative Assembly to figure out how to meet this challenge. That doesn't happen in the legislature very much, because in the legislature, if you've ever watched Question Period, the parties are mostly, you know, fighting each other, trying to score political points, rather than working to try and resolve problems. And so that's what we would bring to the legislature, is to work across party lines. Perhaps we can act as a bit of an honest broker to address this very specific challenge. I like Jeff's idea, actually, as well, of in the same vein, in a way, establishing a legislative committee, an all-party committee of MLAs, to particularly look at this issue, to be able to bring in students, to bring in the general public, to bring in experts, to provide testimony and evidence to them, which they can discuss and debate, and then write a series of recommendations for the parties in the Legislative Assembly, for all the members, the legislators, to consider to move forward with taking action. So I think that's kind of the process that we need to and could follow to address this. I don't think there's any magical solution or easy answers. It's a big challenge, and one that we need to come to grips with over time. In terms of the effectiveness of the way the money is spent in the universities, I think the same approach needs to be taken to sort out how you build that accountability into the system. And that means reaching some consensus among students, faculty, administration, government, and the public about what the true mandate of our universities should be, and move on from there. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Carr.
Sorry, that was right. Radiate out. So I don't know if we go from the brightest to the, or the, anyway, let's not, right, let's not get on that topic. You know very well that in this campaign, the Progressive Conservative Party has talked about developing responsibly our natural resources. In our platform, we made a commitment from new royalties that are collected by this development. 25% will be dedicated to lowering the cost of post-secondary education. The benefits will be directly directed towards our students and our universities. Make no mistakes about it. All levels of government, large institutions, including our universities, must continue to be effective with their dollars and to be efficient and to get the best outcome. We need to move more away from an enrollment formula of funding to an outcomes and performance-based. And that doesn't necessarily mean just graduate studies, all types of degrees, including our social arts and liberal arts programs. Performance-based outcomes will provide additional accountability to our universities. That discussion has started with our post-secondary education in New Brunswick and can provide new opportunities. Yes, enrollment is important, but quality education and performance is as well. And that's just one area that we would focus on. Of course, in order to have that, we need our job opportunities, and we will continue to pursue those opportunities for our young people.
Good. Thank you very much. We'll go to Mr. Lamrock.
Oh dear, this is the part where the platitudes give way to reality, isn't it? Everyone said it was really important, now they're all reminding you we don't have any money. Okay, but it comes down to choices. If you say yes to $220 million in a fund to bail out companies, you won't have money for post-secondary. If you say yes to a $900 million fund for roadwork and construction jobs, you won't have money for post-secondary. Even the Green Platform has 18 lines on organic food and only 8 lines on post-secondary education. The reason why we're able to say yes to these things is because we said no to some other things. And so when we talk about having a faculty recruitment fund to get top talent, because that's an investment, when we talk about helping get the best students, when we talk about top quality research labs and mental health services, it's because we said no to those things and had enough respect for voters to say that's where we're finding the money, not in some review that comes later after we're elected, but up front. And by making those choices and treating people like grown-ups and saying that's the choice we make, no to those things, yes to the driver of university and college education, that's why we have the most comprehensive platform on post-secondary education, because it's about choice.
Thank you. Well, a couple of concrete things that we would do, and again, this is all in the platform that was released today. One is we would start by keeping a promise that was made by the Progressive Conservative Party during the last election, but unfortunately wasn't kept, which is to provide 4-year funding plans to our universities so that they can plan ahead of time and know exactly what to expect in terms of funding so that they can better plan for themselves and for you, the students, moving forward. But we would have a little string attached to that as well. What we would ask of universities in exchange for this 4-year funding formula is stability and predictability in tuition rates. So we would be requiring universities to set their tuition fees for the length of a degree program. So when you start your first year of a degree, you would know what the tuition is going to be for the 4 or 5 years of your degree. That would have to be predetermined before you start the program so that you won't get any surprises in year 2, 3, or 4. The other thing that we would do to make sure that everybody is accountable is have our university administrations come before a legislative committee on an annual basis to explain where exactly the taxpayers' dollars went, where it was invested, to make sure that we are getting the best return on our investment and that the money is being used where it should be used.
Very good. Mr. Langille?
Yeah, I have to agree with some of what Kelly said, that it's kind of strange that both the Liberal and PC party find money for, giving them to corporations and things like this, or spending money on infrastructure, but they can't seem to find $30 million to fix the tuition problem. It's a serious problem. We need to bring things down to the national average. It's the only way that this is going to get fixed. What we're saying is, let's provide 4% per year up front to the institutions, to the operating grants, to cover the tuition, and form a legislative committee to look in detail what's going on inside each institution individually, and work towards signing an agreement in the 3rd year of a mandate that covered the next 4 years. And that would guarantee for students and parents and administrations that they know what they're getting for funding. For us, this is something that shouldn't be negotiable right now. It has to happen to fix the institutions. Yeah.
Good. Okay, thank you very much. Here is the 3rd question. This time, let me see, it's going to be Carr, Lamrock, Boudreau, Langille, and then Coon to respond. This is like the highlight of my job tonight, actually. Okay, so the 3rd question is this. New Brunswick's international student population has grown by 80% in the last 10 years, with international students now comprising nearly 10% of all enrollment. What will your party do to recruit and support international students before, during, and after their studies?
Thank you, David. Thank you, Dr. Bateman. Yes, on this question, international students and population growth is very important to our province. We have a declining demographic, a declining workforce. We're trying multiple avenues, putting forward a job strategy, responsibly develop our natural resources to keep our young people here. At the same time, we're recruiting international new Canadians to come to New Brunswick, one of the best places, if not the best place to live in the world. We have great institutions. Our post-secondary institutions, all 4 of them publicly funded, are excellent. We want to make sure that each of them remain excellent and get even better. We know that international students are not only a funding source for the universities, but international students of diversity provides vibrant opportunity for community life, for school life. We have to make sure that we connect international students before, during, and after to the community, and it largely in part by work opportunities and connections in the community, language training that will assist, and we can learn so much by encouraging this diverse. Also, I've been told over the last year, the health services is important. As an example, paperwork, work permits, study permits, and those need to be streamlined. Our party released in the last few months a population growth strategy that is largely in part of supporting our universities on international education.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Lamrock?
This one's huge. I'm going to talk to you as citizens and not just students tonight. We need to get the word out that immigration doesn't take jobs, it actually adds them. Every economy, I was down in the U.S. on a policy exchange in December, every jurisdiction that's trying to transition from traditional economies to the new one cares about immigration. And it starts here on campus, absolutely. Attracting international students is important. Mike Bloomberg had a neat idea where he said, you know, I wish every graduate could get, from another country, could get a temporary visa stapled to their diploma. I think we should try and get a deal with Ottawa. Other provinces have side deals on immigration. We should get that deal, that if you graduate, you've got temporary residency stapled right there to your diploma, because we need more people, both for the chance they'll stay here and grow the population and the connections we'll all have in other countries after. We have the only platform that's committed to remove the discrimination against international students in health benefits and to work to recruit students internationally. I'm proud of the fact I had the opportunity in government before to personally recruit students from a number of different countries. We benefit from having a more diverse campus, and it's, again, not a cost, it's an investment. We should be making things more hospitable for international students and making sure that they stay. We're the only party that explicitly mentions this in their platform.
Thank you very much. Mr. Boudreau?
Thank you very much. Well, it was interesting to listen to Mr. Carr talk about declining demographics and a population growth strategy when, unfortunately, it's only under the last 4 years that we've been losing population. Previous to that, we were actually gaining because we had a population growth secretariat with a strategy which was very focused and targeted, and we actually had a fair bit of success. But I think to bring that even further, what we would suggest as a party is that the 4 Atlantic provinces come together and develop an immigration strategy, working with the federal government. We are 4 small provinces. We are provinces, as Mr. Lamrock alluded to, we do need to increase the population. We do need immigrants to come to our province, to our provinces. And the universities are a very important vehicle to do that. But we believe we could work collaboratively with the other 3 Atlantic provinces, get the federal government to the table, and come up with a very concrete strategy that will help all 4 of the smaller provinces work in this direction. Because unfortunately, when it comes to settlement, for those who do get granted permission to come to New Brunswick, usually within a very short period of time, for the most part, they end up in Montreal, Toronto, or Vancouver. And we need to find ways to keep them here in the province of New Brunswick, or at the very least in Atlantic Canada, working together.
Thank you. Mr. Langille?
I've had the opportunity as a student for as long as I've been one now to meet a lot of international students as undergrads or as a graduate student. And I've seen firsthand you know, how negative some of the things they encounter are. We need to do a lot better job at making sure that there's a lot better support services within the institutions, and health services, mental services, all of these things, we need to do a lot better job at it. I'm not quite sure how to do it, but I believe that it can be done within each institution specifically, because the demographics within each one are different. The strategy to deal with the issue inside each one will have to be treated separately. The best way from my perspective to do that, again, is through the legislative committee that we're proposing that we form. We need to have all parties on board to work on these issues so that it bypasses partisan politics. And if we can manage to do that, we can all get into an agreement, you know, that we can move things forward in a general direction and go from there.
Thank you. Mr. Coon.
Well, this is quite a success story for our universities, really, to increase the population of international students by 80% in just 10 years. That's fantastic. International students and immigrants in general, newcomers, bring tremendous richness to our community, tremendous ideas and experience, and it's just, I think, enriches us all, the more diverse our community becomes. That's my perspective. That's the Green Party's perspective. In terms of doing more to support international students, I've heard a lot of good ideas up here. I need to know what are those needs. And that's the kind of thing which involves listening, sitting down and hearing from international students about, in fact, what are the needs in terms of staying here, in terms of coming here, and what are the needs while they're at university. So the first thing is to listen, and then the second thing is to begin working across our levels of government, work with the city, work with our provincial colleagues, and work with our MP and the federal government to address those needs. And I certainly look forward to learning more about this, because I think the international growth in international students is just a great asset to our community here in Fredericton.
Thank you very much. I'm becoming fairly conscious of time. We have about 15 minutes left, 2 questions on the schedule of 5, but I would like to give you here in the audience an opportunity to ask questions. So what I propose is that we ask the 4th question of each of you, and then perhaps if you have a question, make your way to one of the microphones as the speakers finish up, and then we can end with a Q&A from the floor. So the 4th question, and I'll have the candidates answer in alphabetical order, please. The 4th question is, youth aged 15 to 24 are most likely to suffer the negative effects of mental illness, while about 5% of students with a history of mental illness see symptoms increase while at university. What will your party do to support the mental well-being of university students in New Brunswick? Mr. Boudreau.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I do think that we need to start doing a better job, regardless of which government or which party ends up in government, in putting the emphasis on preventative health care, on wellness. We need to stop treating the illness, once it's there. We need to try to prevent it from even happening. This is one area where I know that the current government recently released a strategy to deal with this on university campuses. It's actually, I think it was a step in the right direction. It's certainly something that a Liberal government would continue. But as I said, I think to go even further than that and to go to the root of the problem, we really have to put the emphasis on preventative health care, on wellness initiatives, whether it be smoking cessation, whether it be addressing issues like obesity. There are many, many factors there that, we all need to live a healthier life, and if we live a healthier life, some of these illnesses that may occur down the road might be avoided. So we really need to start putting emphasis on treating those particular issues, as opposed to waiting till people are sick and in a hospital bed and then try to treat once the sickness or the illness is already there.
Thank you.
This is a very important issue. Mental health obviously crosses all political, socioeconomic boundaries. We've just learned all too well just recently of a fatal circumstance with Robin Williams. So across political parties, I know that each one of us are committed to continue providing the support, not government telling people what they need to do, because Lord knows government does well to look after their own affairs, let alone tell people how to look after their lives. But we work with people that do know. We work with students themselves to build capacity and support through wellness centers. I have to say Mr. Lamrock has great experience while in government of supporting integrated services, mental health services, cutting down barriers between government departments. Our government, as progressive conservatives, has worked to try to continue that work. We have to love each other more. We have to respect each other more. And if we all can get along, it sounds pretty simple, but we have to start young in early childhood development through our school years, and it has to be not someone else's fault. We all have to take responsibility as individuals, in our community, in our schools and workplaces, and at home. Thank you.
I'm glad this question is here, because mental illness really does strike particularly in the high school years and university years. So that's why in our platform we commit to more money in the Department of Health towards mental health services, and then we want to see that directed to our school system. What we're seeing right now are cutbacks in access to mental health in our high schools, access to addiction services and that sort of thing. We need to really put the emphasis at universities and our high schools, you are the age group and younger are the age group where mental illness tends to begin, where the symptoms first occur. Too many people go undiagnosed, and those who have a hard time too often getting help, relying on their friends way too much, putting their friends in the position of feeling like they are carrying the weight of their friend's illness on their shoulders and worry constantly about what might or might not happen to them. So we need to make sure there's sufficient funds there for diagnosis at an early age, and treatment is accessible and rapid so that access is not an issue. And that costs dollars, and that's about priorities. And on this one, we would focus like a laser beam to nip this problem at the beginnings. And that's in your age group and in younger folks in high school.
Thank you. Lamrock.
I respected the fact that Jody and the Conservatives on integrated services weren't partisan and kept the work going, and I did appreciate that. When I was Director of Student Services here, I heard a lot of stories. International students lost far from home, students wrestling with coming from traditional families and coming out of the closet. I heard about students who were the first in their family to come but worried they'd leave their friends behind. I had a lot of students in my office, and I listened and heard a lot of stories. I know a little bit about the impact of mental illness in one's family. It's devastating. The heartbreaking part was watching young people leave my office and know they'd wait months to see somebody. And we can't dictate the choices they make, but we can affect how many choices are available to them. I'm proud of having worked with colleagues and fought to get a dedicated fund for campus mental health services in the NDP platform. $1 million over 4 years to be administered by administrators and students who know those stories too, to make sure that we actually can get people the help they need in a timely fashion, put those services on campus where they belong. This is so fundamental to keeping young people here, and even more importantly, to keeping young people healthy. I'm proud of the fact the NBSA raised, and I'm proud of the fact we're the only party with a dedicated fund for campus mental health services, because time is of the essence.
Okay, Mr. Langille, and while Mr. Langille is talking, if you have a question for the candidates, please make your way to one of the microphones. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with everything that everybody said up here, so I won't reiterate any of it. The one thing I'd like to add is that I really would like to see a strategy developed to remove the stigma of mental illness, because I think that the early detection of mental illness sometimes is held back by a stigma. People feel like if they, talk about it, that people are going to judge them for bringing it up. We've got to remove that, and I believe that it likely starts in kindergarten all the way up through grade 12, and then on into post-secondary education. I think that's definitely something that needs to be done.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, all of you, for your answers to these questions. And we have one person on the microphone. Kirsten, please go ahead.
Hello. My name is Kerstin Schlote. I'm a reporter for the NB Beacon. My question is, how much will you invest and plan concerning co-op programs that allow college and university students to gain job-relevant experience during their studies?
I don't know how you want to do
Go
this,
ahead,
Dr.
sure.
Bateman.
Okay, this is the random part of the
Oh,
evening.
the
Go
random,
ahead.
okay.
Yes.
Well, it's a very important question. Career exploration, hands-on experiential learning is very important, not only in public schools, not in early childhood, but also at university. This past summer, we have a real example of the government partnering with UNB, Dr. Durendra, on the entrepreneurship program, providing summer employment for students at the University of New Brunswick, and at the same time providing mentorship and experience in developing their own business and startup. And that way you're applying your learning in class with real hands-on employment. We also would love to work further with the engineering and computer science faculties at UMB and the other universities across the province, but to expand upon the successful co-op, but tie it more to the experience, but also to lead towards employment after their degree.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay.
I don't have an exact dollar figure for you, but there are some initiatives laid out in our platform, such as, and it goes maybe a little beyond the co-op programs, but whether it be providing training tax credits for small businesses, closing the gap between the workforce skills and the needs of the ICT sector, identifying and pairing companies with students in targeted programs through what our leader has called education contracts. So, you know, there are different mechanisms there. Obviously, there has been a lot of talk during this campaign of the importance of jobs, and co-op programs and internships obviously fall under that. And while one particular party likes to talk about natural resources a lot, I would argue that our best resource is our people, and we do need to continue to invest in that.
Next, anyone who would like to address the question, if anyone?
Well, I can answer quickly. We haven't got a number for you, but it's something, you know, it's obviously a worthwhile approach to education and making sure that it's effective, so we'd have to look at it. I haven't got a number for you.
Do you have any plans that you have in mind for co-op programs?
We didn't develop plans for the platform on co-op programs, no.
Okay.
We have a few things in the platform we did develop. One is, you know, it's funny, there's a $12 million fund at the Department of Post-Secondary Education for what's called post-secondary innovation. Dominic Carty, our leader, has said innovation probably doesn't happen in an office in Fredericton. It happens at the campus level with good educators working with their students. We would make that available to universities and colleges in order to be able to look at innovative teaching methods like service learning and like co-op education to expand the number of placements. One other neat thing in the NDP platform is the idea of dual credit enrollments, which would allow students, particularly students who may be a little bored at the pace in high school, to take credits like co-op education that count as credits both towards their high school diploma, while at the same time it gives you your first few university credits, and there are links between the high school student and the university or college teaching program. And we have also talked about expanding the number of service and volunteer learning, which is somewhat related in that it's hands-on experiential learning. I was proud of the fact that as Minister of Education, with help of folks like Vic, who were at the cabinet table too, for instance, we expanded the opportunity to train university students as literacy mentors and actually send them into schools where traditionally students were not reading to level. So yes, we speak very specifically about this in the platform and talk about where we might move the money from innovating in an office to actually innovating on campus with the profs who lead that in the classroom.
Yes, our party doesn't address this directly in our platform, but we do recognize its importance. We've talked about it. We need to continue to support it. What that level of funding will be would be determined by what was available in the budget at that particular time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, we have just a little bit less than 5 minutes to go. I understand we have to stop right at 8. We have 2 questioners, so perhaps we can squeeze them both in if the candidates speak in point form answers, bullet points. Okay, Luke.
I'll leave this rather short then because of that. I'm going to out myself as a recent graduate, so I'm going to be selfish. What would a government led by your party do to best support recent graduates in the province who want to stay?
Okay, we'll start at the far end. Very quickly move down to me.
Our party strongly believes that we need to continue to invest in innovation. The PC party has made significant investments to things like MBIF, which have helped businesses grow around the institutions. These businesses tend to hire recent graduates. It allows them to stay in province. And then also a continuation of the tax incentives as well is really important, I think.
Stop bailing out companies that are failing and instead help entrepreneurs grow local businesses that actually hire people where the jobs are by eliminating the small business tax, and put in a firm debt load cap of 8 years so that you can afford to take an internship or a starter level job and not have to go immediately to Fort McMurray. You can actually have a home and a family here.
Good. 10 points for brevity on that one. Very good. Okay.
Not easy
carry
for a
on.
lawyer.
No.
Just count. Or me, yeah.
Quickly, we implement our green job strategy, which I encourage you to look at on our website, greenpartynb.ca.
Wow, 20 points. Brevity.
And we'd say instead of going out west to Fort McMurray, you can do some of the same jobs here in New Brunswick through responsible development of natural resource and development. I think it's been our party, the Progressive Conservatives, that have been talking about that. So job opportunities through private sector investment.
Very good.
Say yes. Well, I don't think everybody in this room wants to work in that sector, so I don't think we should be putting all our eggs in one basket, but we do need to find you a job. That's the best way we're going to keep you here, is to create the environment that's going to allow you to find a job here in the province and stay here.
I got one now, but thanks.
Okay, we're getting very close. We had about 2 minutes, so Nathan, be really fast. You have to be fast, and you guys have to be even faster.
Okay, I'll try to make this quick. I'm a second-year student at St. Thomas, and you've talked about the meaning of international students to a province that has harsh economic and demographic realities. I understand University of New Brunswick actually canceled their international student shuttle service pickup at Fredericton Airport, and the student union has to look after it now, or on a volunteer basis. So what does it mean to you to provide these kinds of resources, such as a shuttle service, to incoming international students?
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Boudreau and quickly go down the line.
Sure. I think working with those international students to make them feel at home is important. And I don't know the specifics of the shuttle service, but it comes back to the earlier point I was making about settlement service as well. We need to make them feel at home while they're here in the hopes that they'll be able to stay after their degree.
Our party supports a provincial transportation strategy to develop that strategy with people within the province, including our municipal leaders, as well as across the province. A provincial transportation strategy might help a link between Fredericton and Oromocto to provide new opportunities to the airport. So that issue in specific, in terms of providing more innovative transportation. Transportation is key, in particular for accessibility, for diversity, but also for post-secondary education students.
I don't know what's happened to UNB, but perhaps they should look at what Stu is doing on this, because I know Stu has a great program for welcoming international students right at the airport anytime that plane lands. I've been there, I've seen it happen. They're really warmly welcomed and made sure that they get settled into their residence and into the university life from the get-go. So UNB, pay attention to Stu.
I agree. Stu has had great student services directors in the past for those programs. So make sure they stay involved in government at any opportunity you have. And beyond that, that's why it's about choices, and it's more than just tuition student loans that touch everyone. It's those little things like mental health services, like international student differential fees. That's why our platform talks specifically about them.
This is the first time I've heard of that issue, so it seems to me like it's strange that there shouldn't be somebody there to meet these people when they come to the province. I think that you need this kind of thing in each institution,
especially with an airport as
yeah,
large as ours. It's very confusing.
It's not hard to find them.
Well, very good. Thank you all for coming, and for those who are watching on the live streaming on the web. And please join me in thanking the candidates of the 5 parties who've taken time out of a very busy schedule to be here tonight.